Can I ask you a very important question? This is this one podcast I was listening to this week. These guys had this giant argument over a question they got in an email. The question was, and this is like near and dear to your heart, is pasta salad pasta?
Yeah, it has pasta in the name, and it's comprised largely of pasta.
Yeah, but the one guy was arguing, like, if you invited somebody to come over for dinner and you said, we're having pasta for dinner,
Right.
and you serve pasta salad,
Yeah.
they would feel cheaped out. They'd be like, this isn't pasta. You said we were having pasta for dinner.
I think it's still pasta for dinner. It's just shitty pasta for dinner. That's more of an argument that pasta salad makes for bad dinner. That's not an argument that something's not pasta.
So you're under the belief that pasta is like an umbrella term that covers a lot of different foods.
Pasta is all the noodles, especially the East or the Western ones.
Do you consider lasagna to be pasta?
Yeah, it's a noodle.
It's just a really big noodle.
They're big,
fat, later.
flat noodles. Big, fat, flat noodles.
Macaroni and cheese is pasta.
Yes. Anything that uses the pastas, from Italy especially, is pasta. You could make an argument that lo mein is also pasta, but that's like neither here nor there.
So here's the follow-up question. So say you're getting like grated Parmesan cheese put on your pasta.
Yeah.
At what point does it go from being like regular pasta to becoming mac and cheese? What is the threshold of cheese to pasta ratio till something becomes mac and cheese?
Well, is the pasta macaroni?
Let's say it is macaroni. Does it immediately become mac and cheese if you put Parmesan on it?
Is it just plain noodles before the Parmesan's hitting?
Sure. Let's say it's got like butter on it.
Okay. I think yes. As soon as the
cheese touches the pasta.
If you have macaroni, if you're working with macaroni and it's buttered, and you add any cheese, then that's mac and cheese. If it was spaghetti and it was buttered and you added Parmesan, that's just buttered noodles with cheese. But if you have the macaroni, it is by all definitions mac and cheese.
What I'm saying is somebody out there needs to create a flow chart of the whole umbrella is pasta, and then there are subcategories, and then things can kind of bounce back and forth depending on the amount of butter is in something, or the amount of milk is in something, or the amount of cheese.
Yeah, or like egg, because egg is what is needed for carbonara. But you also add a lot of cheese to that. Oh, there's this great video of showing these two British like Today Show hosts how to make an Italian mac and cheese.
I've seen the clip.
And it's
the two hosts that hate each other. That man and the woman.
Yeah.
They like had a giant fight like behind the scenes to try to get each other fired.
That's crazy.
And now I think she's the only one that's on the show now.
Oh, so she won. But yeah, so they're eating the mac and cheese, and she's like, if you just put a little bacon, ham in this,
ham.
It would be like a British carbonara, wouldn't it? And the Italian guy, like, his jaw drops, and he says, if my grandmother had wheels, she would have been a bike. Like, what are you even saying? Anyway, what are we doing?
Welcome everyone to the Over Under Movies podcast, where we take a prominent figure of franchise in the world of filmmaking and ask the simple question: are they overrated or are they underrated? My name is DeAngelis. I'm joined as always on my co-host. He is the I see dead people to the beach makes you old, Mr. Jason Gong.
Hello.
Jason, how you doing today? Doing good?
Yeah, I just got off a really strong workout.
Pretty big workout hours here on the
day
pod.
Today.
Oh, you did chest.
Yeah, and usually I don't have someone spotting me, but our friend of the pod, John, came with, and so we were able to put up some pretty heavy weights.
That's pretty good. How much were you pushing today?
Yeah, just pushing, like 310, 350. Like, who's gonna fact check that?
The people at the gym are like, you can't load up that many weights, bro. It's gonna hurt the equipment.
Yeah, the bar was bending, but I was not.
Anyway, today we are talking about a very, very special person to the two of us. We are probably the movie podcast that is better suited to talk about this man than any other movie podcast. Of course, as you see in the title, we're talking about M. Night Shyamalan. He is a Philadelphia director. This is a man who he was born in India and then was like his family immediately immigrated to America. He grew up in Penn Valley, which is in Montgomery County, right near us here in Philadelphia. He went to Episcopal Academy, which is also near here. He's had his production studios out in Delco and Chester County, which is also right near us. Both of us are suburbanites. We are not natively from Philadelphia, just like M. Night Shyamalan.
Yes.
This is our dude.
Yeah, he's our guy. Does he live in Philly still around here?
I'm not sure where he lives
Or
exactly.
does he somehow live in Los Angeles and come back here to shoot things?
No, because
Super counter.
he is a Sixers season ticket holder.
So he's here a lot.
And the basketball season goes from October to like June, and he is at most of the Sixers home games. He's on their like celebrity row in the front row. So he definitely lives around here somewhere. Anyway, M. Night Shyamalan is a super interesting director to talk about in the framework of overrated versus underrated.
Yes.
Because his name recognition is super, super high. For one, he's got a really cool name. His name is not M. Night. Night is a name that he took up like in college. I think his full name is Manoj Nalagatu Shyamalan. It's a very Indian name. It's kind of hard to pronounce for white people. So he changed it to M. Night, which is badass. M. Night Shyamalan just rolls off the tongue.
Yeah.
So very good job on him for the name change.
Okay, so for that, we can all agree. Great creative decision.
Solid. So he went to NYU Film School, and his first student film came out in 1992. He's only 53. He's still pretty young.
Yeah, wow.
So he did his first film when he was 22, a student film.
Sure.
And then his first wide release film that he did, his first like relatively big budget film, came out in 1998, which is called Wide Awake.
Yeah.
In 1999, he did the film that blew him up big time. We've talked in the pod like a bunch of times at this point because it's like the 25-year anniversary. That 1999 was one of the greatest years ever for movies.
Yeah.
Especially like mainstream movies that people go to the theater to watch. And if you look at the box office numbers from 1999, you'll see that the number one movie is called Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. The movie made a fuckload of money. Understandable. But number two on that list is not The Matrix. It is not Fight Club. It is not Galaxy Quest. It is a film called The Sixth Sense, which is a thriller mystery film starring a little kid and Bruce Willis, who, spoilers for anybody that doesn't know the twist of this movie somehow, Bruce Willis is dead the entire movie, and Haley Joel Osment is speaking to him as a ghost because the kid can see dead people. And that movie made $673 million on a $40 million budget.
That's so good.
And overnight, M. Night became the guy. He was thought of as potentially the next Steven Spielberg at one point. That's what they were calling him.
Wow.
They were like, is this the guy that is going to take up the mantle of the next great director that makes these incredible box office success thrillers that are accessible to general movie-going audiences, that are not super high budget? He's just a really, truly amazing director. And what's interesting about him is that his follow-up film, Unbreakable, did pretty good box office as well. And then the film they did after that, Signs, was also really successful. And then in 2004, he makes a movie called The Village. The Village made...
I have it. It's $256 million box office against like a $70 million budget.
Yeah, so it was Lady in the Water. Lady in the Water is the one that
That's the fall off.
really tanked him. Lady in the Water came out in 2006, so 7 years after Sixth Sense. We saw Lady in the Water together about a week ago.
Yeah.
Do we just want to... Let's take 5 minutes here. Let's talk about Lady in the Water.
I'm going to be honest. It's really grown on me since then.
That's bullshit. You saw one buddy of yours on Twitter say that he kind of liked it, and now you're like, you know what, this movie's kind of good actually.
Yeah, shout out to Billy, friend of the pod. But no, even before that, like, I think about this movie every day since we watched it.
Listen, anyone listening to this pod right now, I need to tell you, like, person to person, please do not watch Lady in the Water. The movie is fucking garbage.
I think you can skip the first hour.
So Lady in the Water ostensibly is his attempt to adapt like some sort of modern fairy tale story.
Yeah, it's not an adaptation. It's like his concept.
It's original.
Yeah.
An original screenplay idea of what is ostensibly a fairy tale that takes place in
A Philadelphia apartment complex.
an apartment complex that has a pool in the middle of it.
It's, yeah, clearly a hotel that, or a motel even, that they're calling an apartment building.
In Philadelphia.
In Philadelphia.
Most of his movies are set either in Philadelphia or near Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Which is incredible because if you watch each of these, as we have been watching them a lot in the last like couple weeks, it's clear that not all of these are shot in Philadelphia. The most egregious one is Trap, which I just watched yesterday, where the movie takes place in a concert, and we have a big concert stadium in Philadelphia called the Wells Fargo Center, and it's clearly not the Wells Fargo Center in the movie. I don't know what stadium he used to shoot it.
Yeah, it's weird because he does, he built the Sun Center in Delco, I think. But he uses that place a lot. He uses a bunch of studios that are all around Philadelphia.
Yeah, he's got another one, Berwyn, which is in Chester County.
But I don't think he very rarely shoots on location in Philly when the movie ostensibly take place in Philly. I think our city doesn't give like the tax breaks that other cities do.
Yeah, which is unfortunate because Philadelphia is a gorgeous city.
Yeah.
And it's really cool. I remember when I saw, I think it was Split, when Anya Taylor-Joy like escapes from McAvoy and he's chasing her, and you can see the skyline in the background.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh shit, they're like right next to Philly. This is cool.
Yeah, they're at the Philadelphia Zoo. That was like the twist. One of the twists of that movie is she was like underneath the zoo.
Yeah.
That was cool.
So after Lady in the Water, his next film is called The Happening, which stars Mark Wahlberg. It is a film about plants evolving to like fight back against humans. So they secrete these pheromones that cause humans to go crazy and kill themselves in very violent ways.
I haven't seen that one. That's one of the few on here that I did not get to watch.
The Happening is really bad, but it's kind of bad in a funny way. And that movie, it made $163 million, so it's fairly successful. The one that he did after that is a movie that we watched last night called The Last Airbender, which is a live-action adaptation of Avatar, The Last Airbender, which is probably the most successful animated Nickelodeon show of all time next to SpongeBob SquarePants.
Yeah.
From like a narrative standpoint, it is by far the most successful thing that Nickelodeon's ever done.
That's true.
And they're adapting the first season of Avatar, and they just speed run through it. And the movie looks kind of cheap. The acting performances are not very good, which is a thing that we see in a lot of these movies. We'll definitely talk about that as this pod goes on.
I mean, yeah, it's interesting because the whole thing's awful. And up till this point, he's never done like a straight adaptation before. This is the first time he's really just using someone else's IP.
Yeah, because that's the thing you kind of got to like respect about him up to this point is that he's writing original. He also writes all of his movies.
Yeah.
He gets the screenplay credit. So he's writer-director, which that puts him in another like category of not just guys that take whatever book is popular or something like that, or a script that's on the blacklist, like, and he's saying, I'm going to write this movie and then I'm going to make it. And you can see on his like Wikipedia here, he's pumping out a movie every 2 years. He's rattling them off. I was actually trying to look up directors in the 21st century. Who has there been one that has made more movies, like wide release movies, than Shyamalan has? Shyamalan's made 13 since 2000.
Wow.
Christopher Nolan's done 11. Martin Scorsese's done 9. I can't find a director that's done more than 13.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I'm trying to think of our backlog of like people we've watched and talked about.
So he's done a lot of movies, and yeah, once he gets to Last Airbender, which is the first movie that it's clear that he was doing it for his kids. His kids were clearly like fans of the show, and they were like, "Oh, you should do Last Airbender, Dad." Last Airbender made $319 million on a $150 million budget. Ostensibly, it was a failure. It's considered a failure as a movie. People hated it. It's it's considered one of the worst films of all time at this point. When people mention Last Airbender, people are like, don't watch it.
Yeah.
It's an affront to cinema. It's an affront to Avatar. The guys that made the Avatar series, they hate this movie. So it's tough. It's a very tough look on M. Night. He follows it up in 2013 with a film called After Earth, which we also saw last night. And that is another big budget film, and $130 million budget, made $250, so it probably lost money as well. It was kind of like a vanity project for Will Smith and his son, Jaden Smith. They're basically the only actors in the movie.
Yep.
And it's about Jaden Smith on like a quarantined Earth that humanity has abandoned.
Yeah, they crash land in Philadelphia, but you can't tell it's Philadelphia.
It's Philadelphia, yeah. You can tell by the cheesesteaks.
It's a bad movie. I was looking at some of the reviews from when this came out, and people were also calling this the worst movie of all time. I don't think it was that bad. I thought it was fine.
Yeah, what's interesting about M. Night is that somewhere here in the mid to late 2000s into the 2010s, he evolved from this director who people thought of as the next guy, the next big thing, to, oh, this is a guy that makes bad movies.
Yeah. That probably happened with The Last Airbender, because even with, you have like these back-to-back semi-flops with Lady in the Water and The Happening, it's like, okay, he just fucked up. You know, maybe he's still got the juice. But then you put out The Last Airbender and After Earth back-to-back, which people do consider to be like two of the worst movies of all time, whether that's true or not. So yeah, that's when he really develops that reputation. So entering the 2010s is kind of...
By the way, this last run of 4 movies, the Rotten Tomatoes score from Lady in the Water to After Earth is 25%.
Oh, I saw this.
18%. Last Airbender has a 5% on Rotten Tomatoes. After Earth has a 12%.
Yeah.
So these are, if for anybody that doesn't know how like Rotten Tomatoes scoring works, it's very hard for a movie to get that low of a score. It's difficult, and people very, very clearly didn't like those movies. In 2015, he does a film called The Visit about kids that go to visit their grandparents, and some things go wrong.
I didn't see that one.
And then he follows that up with a film called Split, which I kind of like Split.
Yeah, Split is fun. It's campier than he usually goes for.
And then Split has this twist ending where it ties into Unbreakable, the film that he did all the way back in 2000. And he decides to make like a trilogy out of these movies with the third film called Glass, which Glass is not good.
Glass is bad, yeah.
So,
but you haven't seen Glass, right?
No, I've seen it. I've read a synopsis of Glass.
It's bad.
And then he follows that up with a film called Old, which is about a beach that makes people age rapidly, which is a cool idea. And that's something that if you go like line by line here of his movies, he's really good at the elevator pitch of a film. When you explain his movies in like 3 sentences, in your head, you're thinking of something really interesting. And then you watch the movie and you go, oh, this is boring. And Old is exactly like that. He follows that up with a film in 2023 called Knock at the Cabin. Old and Knock at the Cabin are both adaptations. Those are not original works of his.
Yeah, that's true.
Knock at the Cabin is about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse show up to a cabin that is inhabited by 2 gay guys and their daughter, their adopted daughter, and they have to kill one of them, or else the world's going to end.
Right, so the family members have to choose which of the 3 family members will die. Otherwise, the world will end. But they don't know if these 4 strangers who showed up are telling the truth or not. So that's like this whole thing. I like that movie a lot. I thought it was good.
Yeah, and that's a movie that doesn't really have a plot twist, I would say. I guess the twist is that they're not lying.
Right.
They are literally trying to stop the apocalypse. The world is, at the end of the movie, the world is about to end if they don't kill one of them.
Yeah. Yeah, apparently this... the ending is like completely different than the book that it's based off of.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And then he has a film that is currently out in theaters, which is why we're doing this podcast. It's called Trap. It stars Jack Harknett, who is a serial killer, and he is taking his daughter to a pop star concert, and the concert is a sting operation, and it's his attempt to essentially escape the concert without alerting his daughter that he's a serial killer, obviously.
Yeah, great concept again.
And this movie is another vanity project, this time for M. Night Shyamalan's daughter, which I'm not sure which daughter it is. Do you know, I know you didn't do a ton of research for this either, but is his daughter like actually a pop star, or is she like trying to be a pop star?
All right, let's see. Her name is Suleika Shyamalan, but she just goes by Suleika. She is an American R&B singer-songwriter and actress. So she's performed in his TV show on Apple TV, A Servant. And then she does have a discography here. She has 1 studio album out called Seance that came out in 2023. So she's working at it. She's only...
her stage name in the movie is called Lady Raven, which I guess that's not what she's called.
Right.
That's not her actual pop star name. I feel like that would have been a cool idea if you took a real life pop star.
Oh, I agree.
And use that name recognition as the marketing for this movie.
Yeah.
Like, obviously you couldn't do like Taylor Swift or something like that, but some sort of like lower level pop star, maybe a more like newer pop star.
I think Taylor Swift would do it. She did Cats. I mean, her bar is low.
Yeah, Taylor Swift, do not look up her filmography. It's worse than M. Night's.
It is. Yeah. So this woman who is a singer-songwriter and M. Night's daughter, she's 28. And she put out her first album last year. Was she good in the movie? Like acting and singing?
I thought the singing was pretty good. There's like an album's worth of songs in the movie.
That's kind of cool. Yeah,
There's tons of songs.
That's great.
And then the back half of the movie, she does a lot more acting with the different characters. So she's a really important character in the movie.
Oh, so she's not just sort of like on the stage singing as like the background.
No, she's an important character in the film.
Cool. Was she a good actress?
I thought she was good. Yeah.
Cool. Very cool.
I mean, as much as an M. Night actor can be, I should say.
Sure.
There's really only one actor that is recurring in all of his movies, and that is M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah.
M. Night is one of those directors. I don't know. Is there any other directors like this where he puts himself in literally every single movie he does?
Probably not to this extent.
And what's interesting about him is that he ranges from brief cameo appearance to legitimate character in the movie.
Yeah, to like secondary character or more. Yeah.
Like when you look at him in Signs, he plays the guy that was driving the car that killed Mel Gibson's wife. And so he's in several scenes in the movie, whereas in other films of his, he's just a random cameo, and it takes you out of the movie every single time you see him. Because you go, hey, there's M. Night. He's playing M. Night.
Oh, he is in The Last Airbender too. We were looking for him yesterday. He's there. He is not in After Earth. Because there's only 2 actors in After Earth.
Yeah, there's not a lot of characters in general.
He plays himself in the television show This Is Us, and he plays himself twice in that. And yeah, he's in Old and he's in Knock at the Cabin. It looks like he's not in Trap, but his daughter is. So there's always a Shyamalan in one of his films.
Oh, he's in Trap.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he plays the singer's uncle.
Oh, right. You told me that. There's
a point in the film where Jack Hartnett, he sees a bunch of people with backstage lanyards on because he's trying to get backstage. And he sees M. Night Shyamalan and he goes, hey, you guys are doing such a great job here. My daughter's loving the performance. She's such a huge fan. And he goes, well, actually, that's my niece. I'm her uncle. I was like, you can just say you're her dad.
Yeah. What difference does it make? Whatever.
I don't know. I guess we could talk a little bit here about the acting performances overall in his movies. That's been the standout thing that's been really jarring on rewatch here for some of this stuff or just the regular watch. From what I've read online from people that really like his movies, it sounds like their belief is that the weird dialogue in his movies is 100% intentional, that the woodenness, the weird flat dialogue, it doesn't sound natural at all. However, if you like it, then you're really into all of his movies, because all of his movies have the same issue where actors who are good actors otherwise, they kind of seem strange when they're in an M. Night film. And again, he's the writer and he's the director, so he's clearly getting the intended performances out of the actors. But if you just look at the review scores of his movies and the audience scores for his movies, people don't like this stuff. Almost all of his recent movies, they're sitting between like 40% and 60-ish% critic score, and then the audience score is like 60 to 70.
Yeah.
So this is not a Zack Snyder situation where the critic scores are in the 20s and 30s and the audience scores are in the 90s.
Right.
This is a situation where audiences think that he's kind of all right as a director, and critics think he's average as a director. However, he keeps getting work and he keeps making movies, which is most interesting about him. Other directors that have made a good movie and then made a series of flops, like they just stop being able to finance films from there on out. They're not able to, afford to make more movies. But again, he's made 13 films in the 2000s.
Yeah, well, he's a smart guy and he's a smart businessman. So even when his movies flop, and even his bigger flops, it doesn't look like he's had anything that's come in under its budget, right? Like, we know that you need to double your budget in order to be profitable, which sometimes he doesn't hit that mark. But he's never made such a flop that he doesn't get the budget back.
Well, that's what's really impressive about his recent movies. His last 5 movies combined are like $80 million total budget.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. The Visit made $100 million at the box office. He made it for $5 million.
Yeah.
So he's a guy that is able to pull a small budget film out of his ass when he needs to. And because of his name recognition, it's going to make a certain base level of money. I mean, what's the least amount of money one of his films have made? Knock at the Cabin made $54 million. That was his lowest one.
Oh, that's so low. I thought people wanted to see that.
But other than that, Yeah, he has a bunch of films that are at like the $100 million range or higher, which is good. Wow. Not every director can just walk up and make $100 million movie when, again, he makes mostly thrillers. He doesn't make films that have high name recognition. He uses different actors in all of his movies, and he's not pulling like A-list actors most of the time.
Yeah, or he's getting people who are, trying to reinvent themselves. Like when he started working with Bruce Willis, this is kind of after Bruce Willis's high as an action star, so he needed to reinvent himself as a serious actor, and their partnership was really successful for that. I think he does get like some pretty big actors either right before a career turn or as they're trying to do something new. He got Anya Taylor-Joy right before she blew up. He got Samuel L. Jackson kind of right before he blew up. And so he's able to identify really talented people and then help them along in their careers as they're helping him out. And when he gets them, obviously based on the budgets, they're not asking for a lot. They just want to work with this guy. Even Will Smith, he was the one who sought out M. Night for After Earth.
Yeah, After Earth is interesting. It would be cool to see him try to tackle another science fiction type film because he's a director that seems like he's a little bit stuck in the specific genres that he likes and doesn't seem to be interested in delving outside of the thriller mystery genre.
Yeah, because he did it twice in a row with Last Airbender and After Earth, and then that almost killed his career, I'd imagine. Then he got a $5 million budget, like you said, to try and do The Visit.
He's also, at least early in his career, he was thought of as this guy who makes films with a twist, that have a twist ending to them.
Yeah.
It's not really a thing anymore in his movies. No. I would say if you look at all of the movies he's made, I'd be surprised if half of them have twist endings to them. I mean, obviously Sixth Sense. The Sixth Sense is one of the biggest twists in movie history. And I See Dead People is absolutely iconic. But other than that, do you consider the aliens being weak to water in Signs to be a twist ending? I mean, not really.
I don't really. But Unbreakable has a twist and The Village has a twist. And if you do kind of give that one to Signs, then yeah, the 4 movies early in his career would all have twists.
And yeah, The Visit definitely has a twist to it.
The twist in Split isn't really an actual narrative twist. It's just the fact that it takes place in a shared universe. It's a cinematic universe of M. Night Shyamalan movies.
It's a backdoor twist ending.
Yeah, Knock at the Cabin doesn't really have a twist. And then I haven't seen Old or Trap. But yeah, he got that reputation, and I think it kind of hurt him a good bit, because then everyone went into his movies kind of expecting a twist, and then if that doesn't happen, then they're disappointed.
So do we think that M. Night Shyamalan is a good director or a bad director? And I guess the more nuanced question would be, should we separate writer M. Night Shyamalan from director M. Night Shyamalan?
Well, then we have to talk about Stuart Little. He wrote the screenplay for Stuart Little.
It's true. Everybody loves Stuart Little.
That's just a solid movie. Let me see who directed Stuart Little.
It's probably like Jon Favreau or something.
Yeah, it's definitely like an everyman, accessible director. It was directed by a guy named Rob Minkoff.
No idea who that is.
He co-directed The Lion King, the original Lion King, and The Haunted Mansion, and Forbidden Kingdom, Mr. Peabody and Sherman. Okay, he directs children's movies.
He's a Disney guy.
Yeah. Anyway, so M. Night, in addition to writing his own movies, he wrote Stuart Little, and he was uncredited, but he was a writer on She's All That, the sort of My Fair Lady 90s teen rom-com.
So why do we think M. Night doesn't want to do rom-coms or get into other genres with his main movies?
I think he kind of just likes creepy things and things that have just a tinge of horror elements to them. People direct what they like to direct, and obviously we see that when he goes outside of his wheelhouse there, he has failed massively.
Yeah, one thing I really think would be cool from him would be a direct horror film. A lot of his movies, I'm not sure, it's possible all of them are rated PG-13. He doesn't really do a lot of films that are super graphic or super violent or anything like that. Trap is a movie about a serial killer called The Butcher, who he's called The Butcher because he cuts people up. and the movie has like no blood in it. It's not a super violent movie at all. Surprisingly, in the hands of a different director, his films would be completely different. You could see the R-rated version of a lot of these movies, kind of what the differences would look like. So,
yeah, it's possible that sort of that restraint that he uses to keep them at PG-13 is what makes him stand out from other horror directors, is that he never kind of goes to that well of blood or gore or jump scares in order to create the tension in his movies. So I kind of respect that. I would also be interested, though, in seeing him do like an R-rated movie.
I mean, it is a benefit to his movies a little bit because it makes them more accessible, and it turns these movies into the perfect TNT, TBS, daytime like movie show, right? Mm-hmm. But it's tricky. When I was watching through his films recently, the point that I got to was that, and I'm going to use a sports term here a little bit, he is the replacement level movie director. And in sports, replacement level basically means the bog average player. So an NFL quarterback, a replacement level quarterback would be, if there's 30 quarterbacks in the league, it's like the 15th or 16th best quarterback. Is your guy better or worse than the replacement level player? And M. Night Shyamalan is the replacement level director. I think he is in the 50th percentile of movie directors. There are a ton of directors better than him and a ton of directors worse than him. And I don't think he's a guy that is going to ever elevate a movie above what it otherwise would be. And under certain circumstances, the movie is worse than I think another director would do it. I've yet to come away from one of his films, and I've watched all of his recent movies in the last couple weeks, and they're just okay, which is tough. My Letterboxd reviews for his movies are all like 2 to 2.5 to 3 stars. They're all in that range, which makes him a kind of a difficult guy to talk about because even his like really, really bad movies, The Last Airbender is not super fun to talk about. Lady in the Water is not super fun to talk. Well, maybe you want to talk about Lady in the Water.
Lady in the Water's...
If you want to talk an hour about Lady in the Water, the depth about the water nymphs.
It's so stupid. But Jeffrey Wright solves crossword puzzles for a solid run in that movie, and that part's really good.
You guys have no idea how fucking excited Jason got when he saw that there was a crossword puzzle based like narrative stuff going on.
Yeah, I do crosswords every day, and this movie posited the idea very briefly that doing the crossword puzzles would help save the world. And I was like, I am locked in for
You're
this.
like, this is my calling.
And then as soon as that part ended, I was back out.
And then there's the plot point where they think that they got the wrong people assigned to the wrong roles.
Yeah. So
it's like, no, we need the crosswords again.
The crosswords actually meant nothing. And the real thing that saved the world was reading the backs of cereal boxes. It's a really stupid movie.
It was the cadre of stoners.
Yeah. No, they weren't important either. That was also a misdirect.
Oh, that's right. It was the daughters.
The sisters in that one family. The concept of Lady in the Water is great. Just the idea that this apartment is full of like different people. They're all kind of like, none of them are super successful. They're all leading really different lives, but because of this story, they have to come together and build community to save Bryce Dallas Howard. It's cool. But then the actual movie is really bad.
It is funny when you look at the Rotten Tomato scores for his movies, and then you remember that Lady in the Water is the film where M. Night Shyamalan's character is a writer who hates critics.
Yeah.
And there is only one character that gets killed in Lady in the Water, and it is a tenant who is a film critic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so Lady in the Water is M. Night Shyamalan being like, I fucking hate movie critics.
Yeah.
And then it gets 25% on Rotten Tomatoes.
I've read that M. Night is fairly sensitive to like critical review. And so this guy who, you know, starting with, even The Village did poorly with critics, he's been getting trashed on by critics since 2004 then. So for the last 20 years, he's been suffering. Like he said he cried when he read, I think, the After Earth reviews. And like he's someone who does kind of take it all to heart, but he hasn't let that stop him from putting out a movie every 2 years.
You're right. He went 5 years of being considered the next Steven Spielberg. And then he's now gone 20 years of being considered a guy that makes bad to average movies. That is his range.
Yeah.
I was looking at, like, maybe this guy's been nominated for some, like, awards and stuff like that. Maybe some, I don't know, Saturn Awards. He got nominated for Best Screenplay and Best Director for Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
And then that's it.
Well, that's well deserved. I just rewatched Sixth Sense yesterday while I was making meatballs, and that movie's awesome. He should have won.
He has a lot of Razzie Awards, I should say.
I'm sure he does. The Razzies are like, they're stupid.
He's really a tricky case of, as an artist, how do you come to grips with the fact that you peaked super early in your career? That this man almost certainly will not ever make a better movie than Sixth Sense. He just won't.
I think he's the kind of guy who copes with that by just always tackling his next project like it's going to be his next Sixth Sense.
And he's just making movies. He's making movies he wants to make.
Yeah, I think he must have like a really good head on his shoulders to be able to take this kind of like critical feedback, know his place in pop culture, and still want to be a director. I don't think I would be able to do it.
Yeah, he's got thicker skin than me.
Yeah.
Because you look at like some other directors that have gotten heavy criticism. Oftentimes they just say, like, fuck you, I'm not going to make movies anymore then.
Sometimes if we get a negative comment on our YouTube videos, I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore.
It's over.
Remember when they called you, when they said, shouldn't you be chasing the chipmunks? That was funny. It's like when we read our negative comments, we're like, this is tough. I don't think this is for me.
Why are we doing this? The life of being a public figure. What we're saying is, we understand what you're going through, M. Night.
Yeah, please come on our podcast.
Listen, M. Night, if you ever want to come on this podcast, over under podcast show, gmail.com, shoot us an email. We can hang out. We don't even have to talk about movies. We can just talk about the Philadelphia 76ers. And do you think it was a good idea for them to extend a max contract to Paul George, even though he's coming off all of those injuries? Jason knows exactly what I'm talking about here.
Yeah, Paul George. Yeah.
Yeah, PG-13 coming to Philly. We'll see. The Sixers got a shot this year. Well, I'm cautiously optimistic.
Do they?
Assuming Embiid doesn't get hurt in the Olympics. Knock on wood here.
Oh no, I'm not sure this is real wood.
Anyway, how do we assign an objective rating to M. Night Shyamalan? We're not doing the average of his Letterboxd reviews here. Do we want to go with my replacement level score and say he's a 5 out of 10, or do you think
that's fine?
Okay. 5 out of 10. Okay, so Jason, you have the task of saying M. Night Shyamalan is underrated. What is the argument for him being underrated?
Well, I think that, with your replacement level guy thing, I don't think it's necessarily true that 50% of all directors are better than him. I think maybe 50% of like super active directors might be better than him. So like that's your Christopher Nolan, that's your Scorsese, obviously. But then other people who are super active right now, like Taika, I'm not sure if he's better than M. Night Shyamalan. It's a toss-up. This guy, I think the things that we've been saying, the fact that, he'll put out a movie and it won't get received well, and then he'll just go and make another movie to deal with that. I really admire that. I think most of his movies are fairly memorable. He had that really hot run from 99 to like 2004. Those were all considered really good movies. Stuart Little is it within that time frame as well. But then like even his like really bad ones, like The Happening, I think people consider that one to be a so bad it's good type of movie. And the fact that he was able to bounce back after Earth is really admirable as well. So like The Visit, Split, Old, those were all well-received movies. Those all made a lot of money. I purposefully skipped Glass because that was not good, but that's neither here nor there. And he's bringing a lot of eyes and work to the Philadelphia area. So I feel like we kind of have to go to bat for our boy. I mean, he is a Philadelphia guy. Yeah, he's creating film jobs around Philadelphia where there are not a lot of film jobs. I went to school with a lot of Drexel film students, and a ton of them all worked on M. Night commercials, M. Night projects, things like that. Oh, yeah. People that have worked on his movies? Yeah, I know a guy who worked on Knock at the Cabin. Now, to be fair, that guy said that job sucked. It was so hot. It was so hot in that cabin. But I knew a few guys who worked on Servant, the Apple TV show that he had. They all said it was like an awesome experience. So I love him. I just think he's doing really good stuff for Philadelphia. And, you know, the fact that he absolutely massacred the story of Avatar: The Last Airbender, maybe I held on to the anger from that for a little too long, but I'm ready to forgive.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I definitely see how he could be considered underrated. The main argument for him being overrated is that this is a guy that does not make very good movies, and yet he continues to be able to finance and make new movies. And you look at all the other young up-and-coming directors that are out there and thinking, man, you give one of these people that are hungry for it $10-15 million budget, what could they do with it? Coming off of something like Longlegs and what Oz Perkins is able to do with such a low budget, you get, you know, a dozen filmmakers like that. Could they make better stuff than what M. Night's putting out here? His films are pretty accessible. I know I was talking to my mom about this. Shout out to Pam, friend of the pod.
Hey, Pam.
And she's a big fan of M. Night's movies. And again, she watches a lot of movies just like chilling in the living room, watching it on the TV, right? And that's kind of what his movies seem to specialize in. Cinematically, there's not a ton like interesting happening in his films. There's nothing incredible.
I would disagree with that.
Camera-wise, lighting, music.
He's always moving the camera. Like, he is
Except for Lady in the Water. We talked about that when we were watching it. There are so many shots, like long shots in Lady in the Water, that are not framed properly. I'm guessing intentionally.
Sure. Yeah,
and there's a holding on it.
Yeah. No, Lady in the Water, definitely an exception. I think you said it best. Like, he does interesting shots in Lady in the Water, and then he chooses to hold on them. But like there's a real lack of intentionality or like, you know, reasoning as to why he's doing these things, at least for us with that movie. But like just looking at his movies, like Sixth Sense all the way till now, like, he's more willing to just use simple zooms than I think any other director that I see. Just regular like tracking shots for things besides action sequences. Like he does a lot of good camera work, I would say.
I will say, I think he's unambiguously overrated as a screenwriter. I don't think he's a very good screenwriter. And if you watch any of his movies, they all seem to kind of meander. They'll have a relatively strong opening and they'll have a cool idea and then nothing happens with it. You'll have Knock at the Cabin where it goes, oh my God, these 4 horsemen of the apocalypse show up to these people's cabin. What's going to happen? And it's the same thing happens 4 times in the movie, over and over and over again. Like there's nothing interesting. There's no twist. Old is a movie about a beach that makes you old. Get the spoilers for the movie Old. There's a group of people that go to the beach and they get progressively older as the movie goes along. That is the entire plot of the movie. Yeah. Nothing else interesting happens. It's so weird. He is like a guy that gets to the idea phase of a movie and says, that's good enough.
Yeah. It's interesting because like early in his career, like Sixth Sense is a pretty perfect screenplay in addition to being good in every other capacity. And then like Stuart Little is a perfectly fine, like finely written piece of children's media. So he has it in him to be a good screenwriter that can just follow a simple 3-act structure and keep things moving. It seems like he chooses not to in so many of his projects.
And the problem is that the genre that he has picked to do these movies in is a genre that almost requires pretty smart writing to make the second and third acts of the film compelling.
Yeah, or at least some excitement, right? Like, because if you are working in the thriller genre, you just can't be writing stuff that's boring as shit.
So in After Earth, Jaden Smith is making the journey from the front end of a ship to the tail of a ship that is broken in half. And Will Smith tells him, you need to prepare yourself, son. Every creature on this planet has evolved to kill humans. The creatures that Jaden Smith encounters on his journey are a group of baboons who briefly chase him, followed by a large condor who doesn't kill him and instead just drops him in a nest with its babies, and then a tiger that attacks the condor and not him, and then the monster that he has to fight at the very end. That is, and the monster is brought on Earth by them. It is not like from Earth originally. And that is the extent of the quote-unquote creatures that have evolved specifically to kill humans. It's like he didn't develop the script at all past the idea stage.
He should have had at least one plant try to kill Jaden Smith and then been like, surprise, this is a sequel to The Happening.
Get another cinematic universe. That's what he needs to do, is progressively keep making movies that have last-minute tie-ins to his previous films.
It's too bad that Bruce Willis isn't acting now because, yeah, you could just tie things back into the Glass universe or the Sixth Sense universe.
This is the Philadelphia Cinematic Universe.
He's our boy, dude. We gotta go to bat for him as underrated.
So the big argument that I would make that he is underrated is that I went on IMDb's list of the greatest directors of the 21st century. Where do you think M. Night Shyamalan is listed on this ranking?
I don't know. 17.
M. Night Shyamalan is ranked 206th.
Oh, wow. Poor guy.
So that would be the argument of him being underrated, is that he is not even remotely in the consideration of quote-unquote great directors.
Who's 205?
He's not even considered like good directors. 205 is John Singleton, who directed Too Fast, Too Furious and Four Brothers.
All right, who's 200 and...
207 is Amir Kusturica. I don't know who this is. He did a film called Life is a Miracle and Maradona by Kusturica. Okay, so this is probably like an Argentinian filmmaker. Michael Bay is 210. He's 4 spots ahead of Michael Bay.
Okay, well,
That's the company that he keeps in the minds of people that make these rankings of film directors.
Yeah, I mean, that's not like a list compiled by like 5 amazing movie critics, right? That's just one guy's list.
This is the best list I could find online of rankings of directors.
Yeah.
I would say this is not like a perfect list.
Who's number 1?
Number 1 is Clint Eastwood.
Okay, this list is crazy.
I mean, they put...
Clint Eastwood directed Jersey Boys and Sully. Like,
yeah, I mean, they put Tarantino's at 14 on this list. It's not an amazing list, but I think it does a relatively good job at putting directors into like tiers at least.
Sure. Well,
of how they're considered.
I don't really see Clint Eastwood being in the top 10, especially 21st century. That's crazy.
So if we're saying overrated, underrated, 5 out of 10, you think he's higher than a 5?
Oh, for sure. I think, there's a reason he has this staying power besides the fact that he can just throw $10 million at a movie every 2 years. People come see it.
Do you think that this is just what he's going to be? He's 53. So.
Nah, dude, we've been talking about it. He's got another good movie in him. I don't know if it's going to be a sci-fi movie or just another thriller.
Give me one movie where somebody else does the script and he directs it.
That's never going to happen.
Get a good screenwriter to do the script.
He might work with someone else. Like, he does that. He co-wrote Knock at the Cabin.
No co-writing.
He co-wrote After Earth.
Somebody else writes the script alone, and then M. Night directs the movie.
That's never going to happen. That's not the kind of guy he is.
I just want to see it. I want to see what it looks like when all he's doing is directing, as I have a feeling that it might be good.
All right, let me ask you, who would you pair with him? I guess you probably don't know that many screenwriters by name, but if you can think of one.
Yeah, I don't know a lot of screenwriters. Let's say Jordan Peele. Jordan Peele writes a script.
Okay.
And M. Night Shyamalan directs it. Is that going to be a good movie? Versus the inverse. What would be a better film?
That's a good question.
Jordan Peele writing a film and M. Night directing it, or M. Night writing and Jordan Peele directing? You would probably say you want the one where Jordan Peele's directing.
I think so.
Because you would just say Jordan Peele's a better director straight up.
I would think so, yeah. That's a tough one, though. Because I do think Jordan Peele's an amazing writer as well, and I think M. Night would be served well by that material. But yeah, no, that's definitely a good pairing. That's really strong.
So it's tricky. If we have to put our thumb on the scale a little bit here, listen, he's a Philly guy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's our boy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Listen, shout out to him being ostensibly an Indian immigrant, like working his way up and becoming like almost immediately a successful filmmaker in America. I've seen a lot of discourse online about people saying that folks are overly critical of M. Night Shyamalan because he's not white. I'm sure to an extent, there is definitely some racism in there, at least from cinema bros and stuff like that. I think a lot of the criticism of his stuff is valid.
It's pretty warranted.
Especially if you're going at the quirks of his movies, like the acting performances and the weird editing and camera, tricks and stuff like that. He's a guy that if you like one of his movies, there's a good chance you're going to like the rest of his movie. He's a little bit like Wes Anderson, I guess is a good comparison.
Sure.
He's got a style to his movies.
Yeah.
And if you like one of his movies, you could probably go to another one and say, that's kind of good. Because I watched Trap yesterday, and Trap is a film that it works really well as a dark comedy. I just don't know if it's intended to be a comedy.
Right.
And a lot of his movies have this weird, almost unintentional comedy. But if you're somebody that likes his stuff, you could say, well, no, all of his movies are meant as these dark comedy thriller type things, these hybrid films.
Yeah.
And it's almost this idea of the movies are so bad they're good, right? A lot of people have that opinion of The Happening. The Happening is a film that's considered so bad it's good because it's absurd. The plants are killing people. It's absurd. But making a bad movie on purpose is very, very difficult. So
Yeah.
making a good bad movie, I'm sorry, making something like The Room. So it's tricky. He's a tricky guy to talk about, but he's a director that I'll always watch one of his new films when they come out because at least it's something interesting to talk about.
Yeah, and like we were excited to do this episode. There like has to be a reason for that.
Yeah, we had it queued up. As soon as we saw there's an M. Night film coming out in the summer, we're like, we're doing an M. Night episode. Like, no fucking question.
As soon as we came up with the premise for this podcast, M. Night was like pretty quickly added to the
He's
list.
one of the most divisive directors out there. It's him. It's Zack Snyder. You know, guys that make movies that do not necessarily do well critically, but he has an audience and he has a fan base behind him.
You think he's a better director than Zack Snyder?
No, I don't.
I do.
I think Zack Snyder at least makes films that have a strong artistic identity to them, and I think Zack Snyder just has more good movies that he's made.
I think that After Earth is a lot better than Rebel Moon.
Okay, well, Rebel Moon's not good. Maybe we did a Snyderverse episode back in December.
Yeah.
We should probably do an episode that's just Zack Snyder, just talking about him. We don't have to watch Rebel Moon. The Rebel Moon R-rated cuts came out this week, which are 3.5 hours each. So are you spending 7 hours watching Rebel Moon?
I'm not.
I was looking at a Twitter thread of a guy who was like live tweeting him watching it. And he goes, I'm 11 minutes in and there's already been a bloody massacre and full frontal nudity. So I'm like, yep, this is a Zack Snyder film.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. And I get why people like that too. Because I guess he's the only one who's doing that type of stuff now. But I just don't think it's very good. Now, I like M. Night a lot. Like, I think he does have a pretty good like visual identity throughout his films, and just that hot run that he had at the beginning of his career still holds a lot of like goodwill for me, to the extent that I can forgive The Last Airbender, which to me is like the only one of his major fuck ups. Lady in the Water is also really bad, but it's a good idea.
But anyway, that's our pod here for M. Night Shyamalan, Philly native. Shout out to Philadelphia one last time.
Yeah.
It's really cool to see a guy that he didn't go off to Hollywood and just be a Los Angeles director like everybody else. He was raised in the Philadelphia area and he stuck around, and I respect that a lot.
Yeah, go Birds.
But he went to college in NYU, so.
But he came back.
I see what you did there, bro. That's fine. I went out of state for college too.
Yeah, where did you want him to go for film school?
Is there a film school in Philadelphia? Is Drexel Film School not good enough for him?
Drexel Film has some renown now, but we don't have like an M. Night. You know, we don't have an alum that is that tier of a director.
Yeah, maybe one day. Maybe it's one of your pals.
Yeah, maybe keep watching this fucking podcast because I have so many of my film friends on here.
We got the M. Night. You're gonna see the next M. Night on this pod.
Yeah, it might be
in this bedroom converted into a podcast studio.
Please, yes. Hopefully that happens.
Anyway, that's going to do it for this one, guys. Make sure you check us out on Spotify, Apple Pods, YouTube, TikTok, Roblox, all that stuff. Hit us up on Patreon. Send us a couple bucks a month if you're liking the pod. And yeah, for myself, for Jason, that's going to do it for this episode of the Over Under Movies podcast. We will see you at the movies.
Peace out.
Later, the twist.